I think it's time we blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Cowboy Bebop is a highly acclaimed and well-respected anime. Not only is it arguably the greatest anime of the 90s, but to this day, it is still considered possibly one of the greatest anime ever to have graced us with its presence. As such, one would expect expectations are rather high for this review considering the subject matter. In the past, I have spoken very highly of this anime, even going so far as to add it to a list of 5 anime that I believe you should watch before you die. And that's an opinion I still stand by. But today I plan to be objective, because it is my belief that no matter how highly rated something is or how popular something is, you can always find flaws somewhere, as nothing is ever perfect. A show that is true perfection. I do not believe we have had the honor of such a show being brought into existence, though Cowboy Bebop, in many ways, comes close. So with that in mind, ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, the Star Wars of anime, Cowboy Bebop. You ready? 3, 2, 1! Let's jam. The year is 2071, and by this time, mankind has reached the stars. With the invention of hyperspace gate technology, humankind has begun to spread out into the unknown galaxy. But with every frontier, crime runs rapid, as the law and police who enforce it can only handle so much. And when a criminal becomes so elusive that cops just can't seem to catch him no matter how hard they try, well, that's when they need the help of some good old-fashioned cowboys.
He called you a cowboy. What did he mean? What are you?
Just a humble bounty hunter, ma'am.
Cowboy Bebop follows the story of a ragtag band of bounty hunters who travel the cosmos searching for adventure and excitement and... who am I kidding? They're just looking to get some food on the table as to not starve. Going from episode to episode, our heroes attempt to collect bounties on criminal scum, and despite all of them being quite badass in their own right, they sometimes suck at their jobs.
What happened to the $1,000,000 Wulong reward we got for that last guy?
The repair bill for that cruiser you wrecked, and the one from that shop you trashed, and the medical bill from the cop you injured. Kill the dough!
Awkward. Starting off the character list is Spike Spiegel, a martial arts expert and skilled pilot with an outfit reminiscent of Lupin III and the sense of humor to match, though not as cartoony. It would be good to mention up front here that all the main characters from Bebop are played straight, in an era where characters designed to be overacted were considered to be the norm. Not to say that there isn't some upbeat humor to be had, even with Spike specifically. His past, like most of the other characters from this series, is shrouded in mystery. Well, for the majority of the show anyways. He was once a member of a highly prominent criminal syndicate before leaving through unknown means and joining up with the Bebop. But because you can never truly leave a crime syndicate, his past comes back to haunt him throughout the series. Like a nightmare he can never truly wake up from, making for some of the most interesting plot twists later on.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Spike's greatest trait is how he is able to switch his attitude depending on the situation and not be bogged down in depression when things get rough, as some other hero protagonists might. He can be ass-kicking 1 minute and then confronting his past the next, but he still makes it back to the Bebop in time to complain by the end. And that's why he's kind of awesome.
Jet, do you know that there are 3 things that I particularly hate?
Really?
Kids, animals, and women with attitudes.
Oh.
So tell me, Jet, why do we have all 3 of them neatly gathered in our ship?
Next up is Jet. Jet is one of the more straightforward characters in the main cast. A former cop, Jet buys the Bebop and begins his new bounty hunting gig with Spike after losing his arm. Jet mainly seems to act as a father figure for the rest of the Bebop crew, dealing with the business side of things as well as ship maintenance, analysis, and holding the biggest contact book with outside agencies that are useful for getting information on their various targets. But like Spike, he also has a past that he would sooner leave behind than return to, which could be one of the reasons behind their friendship, as well as one of their failings. More importantly though, Jet is the voice of reason. When Spike goes off on a crazy hunt or Faye steals all the money, you can expect Jet to be the most rational, with an attitude of, I'm too old for this shit.
Sometimes it ain't pretty, but it's a living.
Faye Valentine, the famous femme fatale who tops the list of most people's sexiest anime characters, despite slowly being replaced by newer characters over the last several years. Unlike both Spike and Jet, Faye is frantically trying to find her past instead of running away from it. And because of this, she immerses herself in excessive greed and gambling to make herself feel better, much to the dismay of her partners. Despite possibly being the most inexperienced fighter compared to Spike and Jet, she can hold her own in combat, though never really places herself into a situation where she needs to, instead relying on her charm to get her through the day. There are times when Faye can be soft-spoken and vulnerable, adding much to her character, but it's her sassy attitude that keeps her interesting, and keeps us coming back to watch more.
You know what they say, cowboy. Easy come, easy go.
Ed will introduce Ed. Full name Edward Wong Hao Pepelu Tivruski IV.
That's a long name.
Who the hell's this?
Ed made up that name for Ed. Isn't it cool?
Lastly, there's Edward. Edward is special. To me, Ed seems to exist as an attempt to lighten the mood in a show that would otherwise spend far too long in the dark side of characterizations. She's a zany super hacker from Earth who joins the Bebop crew because she thinks it will be fun. No, seriously, she has a very childish nature about her, even though her intelligence is off the charts. And she's never put into a situation where she needed to be anything else but that wacky sidekick who did silly things. But you know what? That was perfectly fine. She may not have had the same amount of development or screen time as her peers, but it's her childlike black and white view of the universe that gave the show a much needed new perspective on various situations. Plus, she's just fun to watch. With the show's secondary characters, the great thing about them is how simple, yet involved they tend to be. Most new episodes have a new character introduced that you'll never see after the episode is complete, but their arcs are simple enough that a 20-minute time slot is all you really need to get the gist of their character. And they have enough character development so not to just be cardboard cutouts. The same goes for the reoccurring characters. The 3 old guys and the 2 actors from Big Shot, they never get in the way of the story of any given episode, but have enough screen time to be memorable in their own special ways. The overall plot to Bebop is simple enough to grasp very quickly, but just because it's simple doesn't stop it from being one of the most entertaining and interesting plots in anime. The story, as great as it is not without flaws, however. I made mention earlier that the crew of the Bebop, considering how well-skilled they are, more or less suck at their job. No, really, in the entire run of the series, the crew is unable to catch or turn in the bounty on 14 separate occasions. Sure, it's one of the series' main plot points that they never have any money around, and what little they do have is usually spent on either repairs or stolen by Faye for gambling, but for characters that skilled, you'd think they would catch a break at least most of the time. The other major gripe I have with the show is its rather slow start. Bebop really doesn't get truly interesting until episode 5, Ballad of the Fallen Angels. And when attempting to convince others of just how good the show is, forcing them to watch episodes 1 through 4 is a little difficult. Now don't get me wrong, those first 4 episodes aren't bad, but considering the show's reputation as one of the greatest anime ever, those first 4 episodes are kind of a bad introduction. Personally, if you're trying to show off this anime, properly start off with episode 5, move on to episode 6, Sympathy for the Devil, and then head back to episode 1 and go from there. Episodes 5 and 6 have enough context so that you don't get lost, but enough intrigue to make the first 4 episodes more entertaining than they are on their own straight off the bat. Other people may have different opinions on the viewing order, but that's how I see it, and it's worked for me so far. Officially, Cowboy Bebop was animated by Sunrise, the creators of shows such as Escaflowne and Gundam. But more astute viewers may research and find out that a very large chunk of Sunrise's staff at one point left to create their own production company, Bones. So why is this relevant? Well, besides the fact that Bones' first major work was the Cowboy Bebop movie, Knocking on Heaven's Door, 2 of Cowboy Bebop's animation directors, as well as the show's producers, are the founders of Bones, and Bones as a production studio is kind of known for their rather high production values, see Alchemist, Eater, and Seven. Anyways, long story short, Bebop's animation is phenomenal for its time, and it still stands up today even though it was one of the last anime to be made using traditional cell animation before everyone started to use digital for everything. And if anything, that only adds to the testament of Bebop's animation, because this show is so fluid it is like water. It's one thing for digital animation to be fluid as water, but when you know that that same quality can be achieved with someone drawing all the frames by hand, that's an achievement few hold, and even then, not as well as this. I have spoken about Yoko Kanno's work on soundtracks in the past, so much so, to offer her praise would make me sound like a broken record at this point, but it needs to be stated as many times as it has to, and in this case specifically, it would be a travesty to not mention the soundtrack to Cowboy Bebop, as it is what has introduced the majority of anime fans to her work and is constantly cited as some of the best work that she has ever accomplished. Cowboy Bebop is a show that revolves around music. While being heavily influenced by jazz and blues, there are a multitude of genres that the show uses from episode to episode. Speaking of, most of the episode titles are musical references in and of themselves. The Rolling Stones' Honky Tonk Woman, Aerosmith's Toys in the Attic album, Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, and most importantly, the show's opening theme, Tank, is in a class all of its own. And it's one of the few openings that not only can get me pumped for watching a show, but gets you pumped up in general. Like, turn it on when you're eating breakfast and you'll be all like, hell yes, this is gonna be an awesome day! And I would be remiss not to mention the English dub of Bebop, as it has basically been the benchmark of every anime dub that has preceded it. This is the dub that even has dub haters saying, I don't normally watch dubs, but when I do, it's Cowboy Bebop. The norm pre-Bebop was that dubs had characters who were overacted and almost always comical to a degree, because that's what people had come to expect with their cartoons, as it were. And it wasn't always the actor's fault either, as not many of the characters had the same amount of depth that the Bebop crew does, and overacting was just how things seemed to fit. But Bebop had to be done another way, and it did so with some of the most memorable performances that I have seen in an anime dub, with vocals by Steve Blum, Wendy Lee, John Daniels, and Melissa Fahn, with voice direction by the great Mary Elizabeth McGuinn herself. And altogether, these people, with these characters, were able to create performances that are arguably unmatched in anime.
Why do you have to go? Where are you going? What are you going to do? Just throw your life away like it was nothing?
I'm not going there to die. I'm going to find out if I'm really alive.
Cowboy Bebop is an absolute classic and a defining example to what anime is and what it is capable of. There is something in this anime for everybody to enjoy, and I have yet to meet someone who hasn't found something. It is my belief that the only people who don't like Bebop are the people who have never watched Bebop, or are the kind of person that dislikes popular things just because everybody else says that they're awesome. And if you're unconvinced, watch Ballad of the Fallen Angels and decide for yourself. But without any further ado, I present you with the average score for the categories of story, character, animation, sound, and my own personal enjoyment, which, after having it blasted from the very tank that the opening song gets its name from, leaves me awarding Cowboy Bebop with an 8.7 out of 10. And rating this classic certified frosty. A rating reserved only for the best of the best and shows too important to ignore. At the time of this video, Cowboy Bebop is not available for internet streaming, however it is available from Bandai Entertainment in the States and from its European branch, as well as from Madman in Australia, though it's a little bit harder to find than most. And as far as additional anime recommendations go, why not some other classics, including Madhouse's Trigon and Bones' famous original Fullmetal Alchemist series, both of which will do you very well. And with that, I leave you. Until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.